Welcome to the Daily Sports Science Locker Room, number 82. We're here to preview the All-Ireland semi-finals tonight, along with the Tailteann Cup final this Saturday. We've got Mark Doran, Clare senior football coach this year, back with us, and Daniel St. Ledger, former Carlow player and current St. Sylvester's manager. You're very welcome back, lads. Good to see you again.
Boys,
straight into it. Tailteann Cup final. Obviously, have to start with the final. The finals on Saturday, obviously, before the two semi-finals. Mark, you would have played me this year. Doing a bit of research on them myself. I was looking at their team from 2021 semi-final against Dublin. They've 11 new faces in the squad. In the team. 11 new faces. Obviously, they've lost a lot of experience, Mark, the likes of Brian Ment and Shane McEntee. They have Donald Keown at right half back, Padraig Harn at centre half back, who are probably two stalwarts of the group. They're 32 and 29. And I was just looking at their championship appearances. They have actually made 75 championship appearances between the two of them, which is just actually less than just actually more, Mark, than the rest of the team put together. So it is a relatively young Meath side, but they have a good full forward line. Jordan Morris, Matty Costello, Aaron Lynch, who's been scoring freely during the Tailteann Cup. I don't know how much of Down you've seen. Obviously, you've been involved yourself with Clare, but what's your take on this Meath group, Mark?
to be fair, look, I think Meath are no. I haven't been impressed with them at all. That's just been straight up. I know that day Clare played them in Navan, or we declared a few boys missing, Keelan Sachs and Owen Cleary, top forward for us. But we actually, I think, they scored 4. Our goalkeeper made a bit of a boob, made 3 bad boobs, and they got 3 goals. But I was very, very disappointed in me just from what I've seen that day in Clare. And I actually watched them that day. One of the games that Down played them in Parnell Park. I was actually at that game, and I thought Down just had a bad day in front of the post, 16 ways. I think they kicked, and they thought the referee was very harsh on Down a couple of times, but pulling them back. But come back to me, look, you have mentioned Donal Keogan and the centre half back. They've actually put up the day they actually played Clare. I was really impressed with Harry Hogan, the Meath goalkeeper. I thought it was kick outs, but he's actually been dropped.
Yeah.
And they went, and to be fair, now I know Colin Maroki has changed. At the start, Colin came in, he just was traditional man on man. I always remember that even Clare was playing Derry, and it was the second last league game, and we're actually driving down to Donegal. I had to meet Clare and Donegal on the Saturday evening, but Meath was playing Dublin on the Saturday on the radio, and I remember Eamon O'Hara commentating on it in Navan, and just the words just stick to me head and still stick to me mind. It was Eamon O'Hara says, like, Dublin or Meath were playing suicide football again. Dublin, he says, they're leaving Paul Mannion, they're leaving Cormac Costello 1v1s here, and all the Dublin players are doing is actually looking up and kicking the ball into space to the 2 boys. And I remember just thinking, I said, Colin O'Rourke is never going to be able to stick with that tactics, or else Meath's in serious trouble. And to be fair, I think the last game he did go man to man. The last actually game he went man to man was actually the Leinster first again Athley, and they were well beaten. Now, to be fair to me, he has changed his tactics a bit, and he does drop men back. But look, you mentioned their full forward line, Matthew Costello, Jordan Morris. Yes, James McEntee at 11. Even though he was poor again after him, he's not been good enough. But Donal Keogan is a massive player for them still at centre half back, wing half back. I think he's their driving force. But look, they're 2 men inside. But I actually thought Antrim should have beat them. There was a chance. I remember, I think it was Adam Loughran went through the 11 right, and he went clean through and missed. He got caught in 2 mains where he was going to carry it or shoot, and then he got in front. I think that was a big moment in the game. But I think Down will probably look, no doubt Connor will analyse me this week, and they look, the one thing you look at, and if, even during their league games, but even again at them, they really struggle when a team run hard at them. And even that day in Parnell Park, Down cut them open 3 or 4 times when they run hard at them. And the one thing about this Down team, they've serious pace.
Yeah,
and Croke Park probably actually suits them down to T, and Croke Park actually will suit Down, I think, a lot more than will suit me, where me would have been maybe hoping a wee tight field. Look, make no mistake, me still the 3 boys inside, Jordan Morris, Matthew Costello, and Adam Lynch, yes, and maybe James McEntee. But there's not traditionally a hard, not a Meath team. And it's a very inexperienced Meath team. You've just mentioned it. And look, Colin Ross,
I think Mark, midfield's big issue. Obviously, Brian Menton was a fine
massive issue. And look, Brian Menton would walk on most county teams.
Yeah.
In Ireland, he is a big issue. And I know from talking to a few people down in Meath, Colin Kilser a few weeks ago, I know Colin O'Rourke halfway through the league and had done everything trying to get him come back. but simply just wasn't coming back, and it's a massive, massive issue for him. And look, to be fair, Owen Murdoch, middle of the field for Down, and to be fair, Down actually doing I think it's a very smart move by Connor, where he's rotating them between full forward and half forward line or midfield, sorry, and it's giving Down a different focal point of when he goes in there, they can actually go route one. He wins ball and lays ball off, where they bring him out there and it's just a running game. And Down have a lot. I just think Down's pace will really, really bother me this week. And I can't wait to see what way Colin O'Rourke sets me up, because as you've seen the way Laois set up again Down, it was again mentioned that word suicide football, like it was man on man. And to be fair to Down, they're serious, probably as pacey as Down team as you've seen in a long, long while. But the one thing Down do rely on getting a good start. Again, teams just then, so then they can, because if Down get a good start again, then Down will sit back and they have the pace to really hit you hard on their counter attack. So look, the first 10, 15 minutes will be massive, massive. But look, when I look at the Down team and paper, when I look at the Meath team, I think Down, like the pace, I keep repeating this word, the pace, the two Johnsons, Paddy McCarthy, Danny McGill, Liam Kerr, Pat Haver and Ormond, they've seen the pace all over the field.
Dan Guinness as well, moving in the middle of the field against Donegal that day, it sort of give them a different dynamic coming through the middle as well. And obviously the likes of Shane Annett coming off the bench too. Like they've pace actually coming off the bench too, don't they?
Yes, they have, to be fair. And I think I would say Down have used, I'm not sure the number, but they've used serious numbers. They have now. I don't know the exact number, but I know just from their championship games they've used massive numbers. Now I've only seen Down lay twice. It was again Antrim match in the league, and that game again me. The only time I've seen the rest just have been highlights and stuff. So, but to be fair to Connor, look, he has built us a really, really pacey team. It's actually a team that I think suited to playing in Croke Park. Now, as I said, the one thing I can't wait to see is what way Meath set up again. And just because, look, Meath's obviously analysed Down after watching again Laois and realised like the pace Down was able to hit them at. And that will be one thing.
There's a few bad results Down have probably come on slower sod, like, against the likes of Fermanagh, Cavan, and tighter fields, as you say, and a bit more traditional type style, but it's hard to play like that in Croke Park, Croke Park.
Yeah, and it is, look, and to be fair, they're raking up massive scores. And the one thing, to be fair, the Down, and it's Connor, probably the Monaghan team deserves serious credit. It's the first time along. Everybody, it doesn't matter now who scores. The best man in the position gets the ball, and that's it's a really good sign of a team. Like, but I would say, just looking on paper, look, I'd rather be in Down's camp than Meath's camp.
Yeah. Well, here, Daniel, you've actually, I'm going to call you out here. You've called Down the Kildare of the North in the past, boy. Do you think that obviously there's a bit more steeliness about us this year? Certainly, obviously, Connor's come in there and he's brought obviously maybe that Kilcoo mentality that everyone is familiar with, and sort of a siege mentality and keeping things tight and team first, etc., etc. But how do you see this going? Do you think Down have added a bit more steeliness? Haven't seen them a couple of times.
Yeah, it's an interesting contrast when you look at the two managers kind of coming into two new jobs at the start of the year, and both of them taking over counties probably in similar places, maybe not where they should be. Like you look at Down, I think there's been a very clear pattern to what they've been doing. It is probably from the Kilcoo playbook, but it's probably common sense as well. Like, I mean, using the resources that they have. So Laverty would have looked at the players he has, and as Mark has mentioned, just pace across the board, and he's tried to implement that as best as possible, and kind of playing that counter-attacking game. And in fairness, playing a nice blend of football. It's like, as you're saying with Oran Murdoch coming in and out, there's a bit of a long ball option. They go through the hands at times, they can game manage. So, but then you compare that to Meath, who have started off, I remember down in Cork looking at the result in the first league game, and there was a bit of hype about, the kick passes back. I never heard kick pass mentioned so many times during a commentary. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous. And you look at halfway through the league, then it's all of a sudden, oh no, we're not any good at this anymore. We need to revert to something else. And that just shows me there's one group and management who have a very clear idea of what players they have and what style they want to play. And there's another group who are still finding their feet and not quite sure where they are. We saw Antrim and Carlow that day up in Corrigan Park, and I wasn't wildly impressed with Antrim, to be honest with you. I like that Carlow team are quite young and inexperienced, and a little bit more savvy. They could have got a result. And And I think Antrim are probably not a million miles off Meath either. So I think Down are probably a step up on this. As you've already alluded to, I think Croke Park suits them brilliantly. And I would fancy them to win. But for the next step in their development, you talked about those attritional games. Every day is not going to be summer in Croke Park. You know, that Down team are going to have to learn how to win games when it's a slog in February, March, in tight pitches. You know, so that'll probably be the next string to their board, into their bow, that I'm sure they're going to look to add next year. But I just like where Down are going. I think there's a very clear pattern, very clear plan. I'd say the players look like there's no ambiguity about. You always talk about role clarity. Like, role clarity looks very, very. And when the lads come in, they do the same things. You know, there's no kind of mixing or matching with that. And you look at Meath, and there's a little bit of individual flair, a little bit of, you know, a few dummy solo boys and all this kind of stuff. And you're just wondering, is that going to work against an organized structure that they'll be facing at the weekend? And I probably don't think so. I think Down could run out by 6 or 7, to be honest.
Yeah, and Daniel, you mentioned about a clear plan and a clear philosophy and a style, you know, and I listened to Colin O'Rourke during the week. He gave an interview during the week where he talked about, he was very critical of those on the outside that said, you know, Colin can only play one way, etc. Like, and we have installed a defensive system, he says, but I haven't really seen it. Have you? I don't see any resemblance of any sort of defensive game plan from them, particularly after conceding 2-14 against Meath, or against Antrim, sorry, in the semi-final.
Yeah, like there's a really big difference, and I think anyone who's involved in coaching will notice. Like, there's a cheap kind of comment out there that just sort of throw 15 men behind the ball. It's easy to do in your 45, but like, teams will pick you off. I mean, I think you underestimate the amount of time the teams are spending against blanket defenses in training, and that's what you spend a lot of your time doing, is breaking down blankets. So it's not the defensive weapon it was like before. You know, there is a skill in defending maybe with 12 and defending spaces and while aligning that to your matchups. And I think Meath's defensive plan is get men back between the ball catchers, and that's all well and good, and that you get a certain amount of gains in that. But there's a nuance, that there's a balance that needs to be probably struck. And I just think when they're properly run at, like, you look at the angles of running, like the Johnstons, the Murdochs, these lads, when they kind of go at you at real hard pace, that'll really test the defensive structure. And I'm not sure Meath actually. I'm not sure it's part of their plan. I think it's something they felt they had to do, rather than looking at what they have and say, this is what's going to work for us. And I think sometimes managers come in with an idea of this is how we play, but they don't look at what they have. And I think there's an element of that, which is kind of, I think Down have kind of nailed that kind of idea of, these are the players we have, this is how we're going to play. I'm not sure Meath have quite got that balance yet.
Yeah. And Mark, just before we make a call in the game, you were involved with Paddy Talley, obviously, when Paddy was with Down. I remember an unbelievable first half in the athletic grounds against Cavan. We destroyed Cavan, and probably the second half.
Bill haven't forgot about that.
Yeah, and the second half, probably our Achilles heel was, you know, our ability to win it, maybe a bit of ball around the middle. Nothing really much you can do in the Sahili when a team like puts a physical press on you. But with Owen Murdoch in the middle of the field now, have Down got that out ball that they've been craving for so many years in around the middle.
Yeah, and to be fair, look, you would know this. Owen's been and you've worked with Owen too. I know at under 16, I had worked on the development squads, and I just thought, this is a man coming through here. He was a 16-year-old, but he was like a 23 or 24-year-old, and he's matured into something. Like Owen is such a level-headed fella, but he's such a good fella. But when he goes onto the field, this is what really I like about him. He has a real edge, a real nastiness, and look, he is a massive player for Down at the minute. He can just win ball. He can do so much stuff. And the thing I like about Owen Murdoch, he gets the ball, and he reminds me of Barry. He just seems to have so much time on the ball every time. He always seems, we talk about decision making, for a fella so young, like, you have to remember he's only 20 years of age. He always, 9 times out of 10, he always makes the right decision. But he's a massive player for Down at the middle of the field. Like, he's just, it's such a help. And he can just, as you said, like, you can see now Down kickouts again, they just lumber on top of Owen, and then when they do mix it up for 5 or 10 minutes, he goes in full forward. It's really impressed me when he's in full forward. You know, like, some teams throw a big midfielder in, he's maybe just catch it, and that's it. Like, Owen Murdoch knows who's coming after him, the flicks, the balls. He's so mobile. Plus, he can finish. Like, Owen Murdoch, I think it's 2 or 3 goals this year for Down, and he didn't actually play a couple of championship games because under 20s. No, like, at the minute, Owen Murdoch could be as good as he wants. He could be one of Down's best players ever if he keeps developing the way he is. It's a massive plus for Down seniors to have somebody like Oran Murdoch.
Quick question for you both, lads. Tony, I'll start with you. Tailteann Cup, has it been a thumbs up or a thumbs down? I'm not talking about down. I'm talking about the Tailteann Cup in general over the last couple of years. There's obviously been, you know, big competitions that have been tried before and have failed. I was never an advocate of it. I'm not going to lie to you. Back in 2018, Daniel was involved with Carl at the time as well. You know, we felt we deserved an opportunity to play against the bigger teams and, you know, and have your big days out against your Kildares and your Louths and your Laois and your Dublins, Tyrone, Monaghans, etc. that we played over the course of those 2 years. And they were great occasions, Daniel, obviously, you know, full houses and stuff like that in Netwatch Cullen Park. Tyrone coming in Netwatch Cullen Park, you know, will bring a full house. I'm not being disrespectful by naming, but like a Wicklow or an Offaly coming to Dr. Cullen Park, you know, the same old, it's not really going to bring a full house. So has it, start with you, Donny, like, has it been a success? Is it a thumbs up for you, or are you sort of still skeptical of it?
I'm still, probably, it's maybe because Down's in a final, you're maybe embracing it a bit more now, I'll have to admit. Before a ball was kicked in it this year, I went...
A lot of excitement around the county with the children and stuff as well. I
hardly looked, I'll just be honest, I hardly looked at it now. I do think for a management team first year in charge, like Connor, like Colin, or even, it's a really good chance of developing teams. And it all depends on the county team, what they want, because it's a known fact that players want teams to be, and I think me in the same boat. I did hear me when we were beating the Leinster Championship 3-4 and then walked off the panel, and there was and packed the bag and went to America, which is disappointing. But I do think you have to remember, yes, I get your point. It's great playing the Tyrones and all the big games. Yes, you're entitled to all the big games. I just think for teams that never going to have a chance of winning something, the momentum, and it's also a chance. The likes of Down and me, because new management teams, and I think it's massively. It's if make no mistake, if Down win on Saturday, it's a really, really positive year for Down, because it probably was a wee bit of a downer for them not getting out of Division 3. But if Down were to win on Saturday, they say, right, well, look, we're in Sam next year, and we've built, and we give people, and look, I've alluded to it before, I think Down have give serious championship debuts this year. Now, to be honest, did I pay much attention to the first couple of rounds? I went and watched Down and Meath that day in Parnell Park simply because I do something in Dublin. I was down, and did I pay many attention? No, probably didn't. But once it got to semi-final, and now Down in the final, now if Down weren't in the final, would I pay much heed to it? I don't know. I know last year I watched the Westmeath and Cavan game, but I was in and out. It wasn't really embracing. But I do think it's a lot better than the Tommy Murphy Cup of 8, 9
well,
years
ago.
There's
more TV exposure.
Yes.
You're playing games at Croke Park. There's a holiday for the winning team. You know, there's incentives. There's an all-star team.
If county teams buy into, I think the longer it goes on, it will get better. That's my honest opinion. I'd look at the minute. Yes, I would say thumbs up, but jury's still out. And I get your point. I do get your point. Teams love a shot at a big gun, and look, I get that. But what, like you've seen some, if you're getting the beat by 23 or 24 points, and not everybody, but some teams do get that. What enjoyment's out of that? What developments in that? Whereas I think, especially for Down, look at them, it was a massive development. Look, even Westmeath were a massive story last year, winning it. And then I still remember the pictures. I've seen a couple of pictures when Westmeath brought the cup back to Monaghan. So that was massive. Look, and for the teams now, 2 teams involved, I would love to know this now. You'll never ever know the answer. Once the first game of the Tailteann Cup, I'd love to know how players felt in every county team that was playing. You know, it's okay now, Down, because even that day Down played Longford, I remember watching TV, there didn't seem to be too many in Park Esker that evening. So look, the furthest went on, but look, it's been really good for Down, just simply because of the hype. And look, you know, Down love a day out of Croke Park. Yes, it's a development for the new teams. But look, there is some teams who just, once they're beat, there's 5 or 6 players have packed the bags, went to America. I'm not playing in that. And I know even when Clare, there was, if we're going to be in it or not, then there was Clare players going, if we're in it, I'm going.
He's gone, no,
so
I totally understand. Daniel, you played for well over a decade, obviously, for Carlow. Some really good days, some really bad days as well, I'm sure. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I still think it doesn't go far enough. I think you've got 4 grades of I think you've got 4 grades in this in the country, and the league is your best thing. And I'm not going to diverge from that. I still think the league is the best competition, and I still think that should be your summer competition. But look, that's probably a separate story. But as regards I played in the Tommy Murphy Cup, and I remembered a bit of hype around it in the few years before, and I remember Antrim winning it, Wicklow winning it. There was a bit of hype in the first couple of years, and it was a big enough deal. I remember a massive crowd going up. I remember Tommy was transferred over from Carlow and he was playing with Wicklow, and I remember there was a bit of a buzz around that as well. But the acid test for me, right, is going to be, it's costing Croke Park to put these matches on. Firstly, just from the stadium point of view, I think was it 10,000 went between 14 the semi-finals. So costs are the first thing. Second thing is it costs RT money. What are the viewership figures like? And the holidays, all the rest of it, the county board expenses to keep these teams going for an extra couple of weeks, right? As a development, I 100% agree with the both of you. It's a brilliant development for players, but for teams to get more games, more summer games, more time together as a group, develop a pattern, develop and plan. But the problem is the finances, I think. How long are the GAA going to keep pushing this and giving it the support until they say this actually doesn't make sense from a business point of view anymore? How long until the Tommy Murphy Cup is going to be in Parnell Park? How long until these games won't be live anywhere? That will be my concern from it. And look, I'm kind of the same as Mark. I'll wait and see. And look, I kind of hope I'm wrong, because I definitely think there is a massive development then, but I think it'll always be looked at as a development competition. And I'm not sure it'll ever take over as the be all and end all. But like the Westmeath are a good example. I thought Westmeath acquitted themselves really well this year in the championship. Down are the same, but give it 5 years and let's see what we're saying, you know.
Yeah, and ultimately as well, you mentioned it, money makes the world go round, and that's what's going to be relaying the decision from Croke Park. Mark, call it quickly, just quickly there. Down. Yeah, Daniel, down easy. Yeah. I think the same as lads, just quickly, Dublin Monaghan. Look, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Don't start with yourself. Being completely respectful to Monaghan here. I think they've done unbelievable to get to where they were with a new manager, Vinnie Corey. I think he's done remarkable to keep them in the division. I just think Dublin have a little bit of a mojo back. I just can't see how. You're a coach, Mark. You're getting into this game. Imagine you're Monaghan coach. How do you win this game? Honestly, like how do you set up to win this game?
Well, the only thing you know what Monaghan's going to do, they're going to bring 14 fit, and they're going to. And to be fair to Monaghan, they always seem to give Dublin some sort of a game. They always do. And the one thing I give Monaghan a chance about, they're the one team in Ireland, I believe, who max out. And there's one thing, they will never throw the towel in. They're the one team in Ireland, I would say, just these boys will go to the wall for you. But look, as you says, Dublin, I'm going to say about 6 or 7 weeks ago, I think I told you and Kevin, you were talking about who'd win that Ireland. I said, it's Dublin or Kerry. And I said, there's nobody else anywhere near them.
That's true, yeah. That's
and
true.
Look, and to be fair, Dubs have come along and make with Stephen Clapp, but as a Monaghan go back to Monaghan, Monaghan's going to try and hang in the game. The worst thing Monaghan can be is after 20 minutes of Dublin go 6 or 7 up, then it's going to test. But Monaghan will just try and hang in the game as long as possible, and just that's going to be. I don't see them having any other tactics. Look, and I know, funny enough, I was talking to Marty Corey a few weeks ago, and I know he had that serious belief they were going to beat Armagh. Now, I just would wonder, do they have them serious belief? Again, Dublin, now you have to remember too, I remember being at this game at Cloners. Monaghan actually relegated Cloners at Dublin last year in Cloners. So that's more motivation for Dublin. Like, Dublin won't forget that.
Yeah.
The reason Dublin's playing second division is because Monaghan relegated them in Cloners. Jack McCarron had a field day now. Look, it would take Dublin just have a really, really off day. And to be fair to Dublin, look, they were really good to me in Mayo, but consistency, it was good for Dublin. Mayo was a game Dublin needed, because it was a game right, backs are to the wall. They're now going in, were hot favourites. Everybody's talking about the Dublin Kerry final. Look, I'm trying to give Monaghan some sort of hope. I think Monaghan's just going to go and try and stay in the game as long as we can. And the one thing I will give Monaghan, look, whatever Vinnie Corey and Marty Corey and these boys tell Monaghan boys to do, they will carry it out to the letter of the law. But look, it's a steam. I think Dublin's on a wee bit of a crave, and they've got the mojo back, as you say, and there's now players fighting for places which is massive. But you look, I said this, there was only one reason Stephen Fluxon, Paul Mannion, and these boys came back. It was to take stand. And now they're one game away from being in the final, and I just don't. It's going to be a hard day at the office for Monaghan. But you did recruit like Vinnie Corey. What Monaghan have done this year is excellent, and I've no doubt you had to said this to Vinnie Corey at the start of the year. He'd have took the two hands of you.
Yeah, you've worked with a couple of these boys, Donny. Desi Ward, Desi, a dog of war. You know, a real.
I'd have to say, like Monaghan club football it's just like, you know, every championship game was like, it was a massive battle, and that's even playing against the Scottstown, the Hughes, as you're going to Canterbury, McManus, Ryan Wiley, and that's the one thing. They're so honest. They're the most honest bunch of people, and even when they go and play club football, they just, you know, they'll do everything. They're the one team I was saying, Ireland, that max out, but they actually every player will die in their attempt for that. Once they pull that white jersey on, they do anything, and it's like you never ever hear a story coming out of a Monaghan camp. Everything, and like I think there's only 65,000 people in Monaghan, 10 senior clubs, 10 senior clubs, and what they've done, they just max out to the, and they're such. I couldn't say a bad word about one Monaghan player, even playing like Ballybay, playing the Scottstown, Canterbury. After the game, you've been talking to people and talking to the players, different. You couldn't say one bad word about them. That was whatever happened. They'll do everything in the field, whatever happens in off the field. That's forgot about. You shake hands, and they're good people. And I would love them to give a really massive performance. I wouldn't want them to go out.
Well, Tony, I know you're saying Monaghan people are lovely people, but in 2017, Carlow played them, and Daniel St. Ledger started in Melee after about 3 minutes. And there was plenty of Monaghan players.
Can I give the story to that? Can I?
you said you made an interesting point there. Daniel started the Melee.
He didn't finish it anyway.
No, but they're lovely people. But I'm on the field, they will do anything. And they're the one team in Ireland, I think, they just max out, and they never throw the towel in. No matter what happens, they will go to the trenches for you.
Yeah. Daniel?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to that row for a second. It was actually funny because Stevie said whatever. We were in the Tailteann Hurling Club a few minutes before, and we were doing a bit of video analysis. And he said straight after the throw in, whatever you can do, no matter what they do, start a little scuffle. So we were waiting for some Monaghan that to do something to us. And sure, they were lovely, grand lads shaking hands. And we had to nearly invent a row just to get a bit of a go on it. But no, Stevie's a very good coach. You wouldn't be interested in dark arts. But no, in general, I like agree with Mark. Like, in fairness to Monaghan, they max out no matter what they're doing. They absolutely max out. I still think Dublin weren't great in the first half. I think they still played with a little bit of lethargy. I thought they were wildly exposed in the first half, like really, really badly exposed, their full back line. Now, sign of a good team, they tightened things up massively in the second half. But the big thing for me was they put a massive squeeze on Reeves' kickouts in the second half, and that really put them on the front foot. And look, partially, I think Mayo completely flopped as well. Like, when O'Shea was inside, it was a focal point for them, and when they brought him off, it was a mistake, because all of a sudden they had no main focal point, and the rest of the attack didn't function. But that's a kind of a sidebar. But I was concerned of Dublin and Kerry. I was concerned about quarterfinals for both of them. Would they be caught cold? But in fairness, both of them answered those questions. But I think Monaghan they'll nearly need single figures ball and play time. Like, I think that's what they're going to be going for. Like, you know, they're going to have to turn this into a bit of a walk for a lot of it, and they're going to have to really control tempo. I can imagine Began coming up to hit freeze from anything within 60 meters. I think they'll have to take the sting out of Dublin massively. And they have been doing that in games fairly regularly. Like, you know, I mean, go back to the Kildare game, that was played at a walking pace and almost, and I think they have to do that. I don't see them having the firepower to really trouble Dublin. I think they will need goals. I think Dublin is it 12 clean sheets in a row or something like that they've had. I think they're going to need goals. I can't see it. I can imagine it being a relatively low scoring sort of an event, and they'll definitely stay in touch and they'll dog it out, but I just can't see him having the bit of quality, you know. But it's yeah, Jesus, you love to see it, because they're a phenomenal county and a phenomenal group of players that have put their shoulder to the wheel for a long time, you know.
On a lighter note, Dorney, I do remember that, because at the time at that row, Dermy Malone, who's the Monaghan minor manager, he had Gannon by the throat, Daniel. And I remember running across the field, because the runner was still involved at that stage. And I was running across shouting, Dorney, get in and around it. And Kieran Hughes came out of nowhere and hit me a shoulder. And I thought it was in a car crash. I'd whiplash for a week.
I'm
Remember,
glad
we
you cleared that story up, but Daniel, because I always thought Stephen was an innocent sort of a boy. But I'm glad
But
you
hey,
cleared that
but
up.
lads, you see, talking about Dermy Malone, like even at the weekend, Mark, you know, for Monaghan minors to be in an All-Ireland final, like as you talked about the population, it's phenomenal, isn't it? Like really
It is.
phenomenal.
It's, to be fair, the Monaghan County Board, their development squads, their structures, everything is right on the money. There's nothing left a chance. And every Monaghan play, they just love Monaghan. When they love even you're talking to people at different club games and stuff, when Monaghan's playing, every club rows behind Monaghan.
Marty Curry, I met Marty years ago. He's a switched on guy. Like he's tuned in. He's done a lot of work through the development squads in the past, hasn't he?
Yeah, him and Paul O'Connor have done serious work. Look, Marty's a fella very friendly when they look. He's a fella, I like Marty, and to be fair, but even him and Vinny, it's actually freaky how similar.
Right. Okay.
They are when you're talking to both. They're talking to one individual. You can nearly say, if you close your eyes, that's Marty or that's Vinny. They're just, but they live and breathe Monaghan football. They love Monaghan football. Like, and it was just, I thought it was very interesting that day. I was talking to them after the Armagh game. He says, "Look, we believed. We really believe." Now, Daniel mentioning again Armagh about tempo. Monaghan played the game, Monaghan played the game against Armagh and their pace, and that was probably a mistake but I don't think Dublin will allow Monaghan to do that. Yes, when Monaghan ball in the hand will be different, but I do think Dublin will look to inject pace into their play as much as possible.
Donny Vinny Corey played with a lot of these lads.
He played championship last year, full forward.
Coaching your peers, like, because he's played championship with a lot of these lads, you know, the Manzies, Darren Hughes, you know, obviously how difficult would that have been for that transition? Like, obviously the respect was instant from them lads. Like.
Well, funny, I always remember when he got the job, Paul Finlay says he's a right man for the job, and says right away, first thing he get the respect of every player. He says there's 20 years. He's just, I remember asking Paul a couple of things. He says, I'm always at training, it's just head down. He will give everything. And look, there's no doubt younger players coming in, older players would have looked at him and went, he's still doing this. And even at club football this year, like he played full forward. Ballybee played contemporary this year in a semi-final of championship, and Benny Corey's playing full forward, between full forward and trying to have back, and still giving his all. And to be fair, and this is the thing, like he would end the attack, didn't hold back. If Desi Ward was there to be hit, he hit him vice versa. There was no, and he was named as Monaghan manager at this time. There was no holding back. But once the game was over, it was just shake hands, and that's just a sort of, and he seemed to a real genuine person, but it's just he just loves Monaghan.
Daniel, final little word on this. Dublin seen an interest in stat productivity levels. Obviously what that means is sort of, you know, every time a team has possession, how many times they're getting a shot away or a score, that they're through the roof in comparison to last year. Now obviously being in Division 2 has probably had an impact on those statistics, but certainly they're a bit more process driven this year. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so, and probably a lot of that is aligned with some of the boys there after getting back, and I don't think that's a coincidence, you know.
Plus Con's form.
Yeah, Con's form is huge, as we said here the last day. Like him playing is pivotal to what Dublin are doing. Look, they are. I still think I'm still not 100% convinced by them, to be honest with you. But I don't think this weekend is going to be the weekend they're going to get caught. I still would have concerns about their first half against Mayo. And again, looking down the line, that might be a bigger problem when you're facing a Kerry or Derry or whatever it might be. But I still think that the quarterfinal was the time I was nervous about them. So I think they'll have 5 or 6 to spare at the weekend, I think.
Yeah, Donny, call it.
Yeah, Dublin. I hope it's only 5 or 6. I would hope, and I'm trying to give Monaghan some hope. But I fear it's the end of the road for Monaghan. But Dublin. Just one question, Daniel. What's the one thing you were impressed with Dublin about?
When Dublin squeeze and play with tempo, I think they're so much better.
But you think in the third quarter, when was a Dublin team that won 6 in a row? When did they go to town on you?
Well, the Dublin team, the third quarter would be.
And as to what they came out, I thought it was the first time in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, third
where
quarter.
you see a real focus in that third quarter. But I think they're missed. Like Pat Gilroy back in there has been massive for them.
Yeah,
what's the word on him, Daniel? What's the word on him, Daniel, in around Dublin? What's the word on Gilroy? Huge respect.
He's training Vincent senior hurlers as well. Like, so I don't know how much time he's actually on the ground. Like, but he definitely has an impact. And I'd say there's a lot of one-to-one work rather than being on the field. I'd say there is a massive. We talked about Vinny having a lot of respect from the Monaghan lads. There's definitely a lot of respect from a cohort of of those Dublin kind of 2011, 2010 era guys who kind of would have gone to the well for Pat when he would have got rid of some of the Beecher test against the Hill type of fellas that would have been playing for Dublin, you know. So there definitely is a huge amount of respect for him there. But it's I'd just be curious to see like when will they pull the trigger totally, because I still think they're playing a little bit within themselves at the moment, you know.
Yeah.
I'll just mention something there. Reverting back to the league game, Dublin and Clare, there was about 20 minutes left. Clare led by 6 points. Pat Gilroy was sitting up in the Hogan stand, radioed up with about 15 or 16 minutes left. He came straight down to the line. Him and Desi Forrest seemed to have a wee bit of altercation. They were just having, but he pulled Kieran Kilkenny, Brian Fenton. There was somebody got injured. He pulled them two over. He pulled, I think it was Conor Callahan and somebody else. I can't remember the other four. It was John Small. With it, and they brought the four of them in for about 45 seconds. He did it, not Desi Farr, and whatever happened, face of fit, just a different Dublin.
That's interesting.
It paints a picture, doesn't it?
But I think at the weekend we'll all agree, lads, it's going to take a mammoth effort from Monaghan. Lads, on to the final game, Derry and Kerry. Again, Doran, it's a team you've probably come up against most of these teams this year. You've come up against both of them actually. Munster final. And obviously then in the group, the Sam Maguire group against Derry. So I don't think there's anybody better for us to speak about them. Interesting one, Mark. Tom O'Sullivan is actually probably one of the highest shot takers in the Kerry panel, which is a mental statistic for a cornerback, and probably plays a very similar role to Conor McCluskey in that he's constantly driving forward. You know
what happens is a lot of teams, David Clifford playing full force. A lot of teams try to double up, and it's always taking a man back or dropping a man back. So what Kerry do automatically is Tom O'Sullivan is now their free man. And to be fair, Tom O'Sullivan can play ball. He can pass. Like, it's not even the shots. It's just like, see the scores he sets up. It's just for a cornerback. He's just off the charts. And to be fair, knowing the Munster final that day, we tried a man mark him, but sure, it didn't go well there.
Yeah.
We decided we'll not play somebody not David Clifford, and we'll go and mark.
They started that Munster final mark off like the steam train, didn't they? They're really.
There's obviously what happened to Clifford's mother the day before the big influence. But look, it was that day. I always remember their forward movement. Everybody talks about David Clifford, but it was their movement, their backdoor cuts, their angle runs, and everybody was in the safe wavelength. It wasn't as if it was off the cuff. Yes, it was that, but everybody knew nearly what everybody was doing. It was just through the hands. It was just, I thought that day, this Clare was maybe bad, we were probably a wee bit naive, but that's the first day I just thought their movement up front, you know the way sometimes you see them on TV, but that day actually, just their movement when they were coming up the field with the ball. Jason Foley's maybe winning the ball at maybe in the full back line, but their 6 forwards were just constant. It was in, out, there's like blocking off runners. David Clifford maybe running across, and maybe Doran was coming the our way, blocking a foot, screening. It wasn't just one or two ways. It was their whole 6 forward set. They were just screening each other, and it was constant.
Basketball type moves, maybe.
Yes, it was just all, and up close that day, and I just gone. And I remember we had a camera, just 2 or 3 days later, a camera behind the goals and watching just their move, because we actually sat down with Clare players after and went like showing our forwards like in my eyes, that's the best forward unit in Ireland at the minute.
That camera behind the goals, has it made its way to Derry? Has it?
No, it hasn't. Paddy, not that.
Tell me this, Mark, just quickly before I ask Daniel here. Obviously, you're looking at this Derry team and they've progressed. I think they've progressed from last year. I really do now. I think they've progressed.
To be fair, offensively, they have really progressed.
But a worrying statistic, Mark, is the goals they've conceded. They've conceded
the goals, and that under that high ball, they're still a wee bit dodgy. Now, to be fair, for Monaghan too, I think back to the Ulster game, and I'm actually surprised. Yeah. A lot of teams now haven't went as high at them. High balls in as much as they possibly can. But look, to be fair, they've improved massively offensively. Has it opened them up defensively a bit? Maybe, but they're still, when Derry, you know what you're going to get with Derry. That's first and foremost. You know what you're going to get. They're going to bring to the table. It's going to be like a possession-based approach every time. And it's not that they'll turn the ball over and go 100 miles an hour. They're happy. They're happy to win the ball and let you get back. But it'll just be interesting to see tactically what Kerry, because Derry will possession base, and they'll try them work the ball one side. Look, they overload. They'll try and work them scores. And to be fair, look, they will. This is an interesting, just tactically, I actually can't wait to watch this game because, to be fair, what Derry have done really good this year. Owen Lynch has been a massive player from this year because they will commit 14 bodies to attack. So it means 14 defense. And then that's where Owen Lynch comes in the loop. Now, Derry, I think, look, there's Nicholas, Kieran Meena is probably going to be sitting this week all week. We have to try and bring this game to the wire. And like Derry will, again, they're going to try and stop the play just at every opportunity, slow things down, and they'll try and hold out, frustrate Kerry. But now the one thing I think Kerry, now Daniel mentioned it, like the top teams that like break and blanket defenses down. Now I actually think Derry have the best defensive system, even though we talked on that they're conceded more goals, a few under the ball, but they just seem to like if somebody misses a tackle right away, they're somebody over. When you score again, Derry, you have to work really, really, really hard. And look, Derry will get the ball possession base. They'll try and control the clock. They'll try and draw frees. They'll commit bodies down. But the one thing they do still, it's up front. And I do think Derry will have enough defenders. And I'm saying this tongue in cheek. Look, obviously David Clifford, but Derry defence do have men that can go and say, right, I'm going to trust you 1v1 here. You can go, and they know they'll get the cover. But it's just up front. But the one worry for Kerry will be, Derry, and this will be interesting to see what Kerry do. Derry will commit everybody forward. Now, do I think David Clifford and Seanie O'Shea will track? I think they'll take the risk and go, we could turn them over. And if they can turn them over, the first thing Kerry's going to do is a kick pass. And it's going to be interesting that now. If Derry go up the field and score the first point and Kerry leave David O'Shea and Davy Clifford and Seanie O'Shea up the field, then it'll ask the question, right, Kerry going to do this again? But if Kerry are to turn them over and Kerry go and hit them hard, it's going to put the fear of life into Derry. And that's going to be now, it's what way Derry approach that. And I think the longer, if Derry can bring this game down to the last 10, 12, 13 minutes, then you'll be in the game. But I just think Kerry, their forward play, what they're doing at the minute, they've just seemed to be, they've got their mojo back. Again, interesting. There's one just watching the game the other day against Tyrone. Michael O'Neill made a burst up the field, right? And when you've ever seen Adrian Spillane chased him maybe 30, 40 yards, got to the 45, and Adrian Spillane come from nowhere and turned him over. Like the work rate he done. And I just thought that was a real sign of an intent, because everybody says about Kerry, they're so good without the ball. And to be fair, look, Kerry now tactically, defensively against Tyrone. Like, when's the last time you ever seen a Kerry team not press a kick out? Like in the first. And I'll be interested to see what they do again in the middle of the field, because that's one place Derry do probably have an advantage over them, is Conor Glass and Brenton Rodgers. But look, you know what Kerry's going to bring to the table, or Derry's going to bring to the table, is just if Kerry open them up in the first 10 or 12 minutes, what's the Derry mindset? Like, and it's the longer Derry's going to go, the longer they can stay in the game and make it tight, because yes, they beat Cork last week, but last year Derry were showed up by Galway in Croke Park when the spaces started opening up, that playing the football. It's already getting 15 behind the ball defensively and then trying to commit 15. But Croke Park's a big field. When they were faced with Galway last year, it was a big test. They failed it. They played Dublin this year in the National League final in Croke Park. It was a fail. Now, the only thing I would give Derry, I think they're in a brilliant place going into the semi-final, because everybody is Kerry writ off, or Derry writ off, Kerry in Dublin final. Derry actually were very poor against Cork. Won the game. I think they beat Cork and they didn't even get out of second or third gear. Shane McGuigan probably had a really quiet day. I don't think Shane will be as quiet again. So look, there's positives for Derry, but it's just that mindset of Derry when they go to attack and they find out that maybe David Clifford or Sean O'Shea aren't tracking us. Yes, Derry, everybody says that the one thing about them, they do look after the ball, but it's a difference looking after the ball again, a Cork or a Clare or a Armagh. A big difference again. Derry's or the Dublins, when you really pressure comes on, and that's going to be it'll just be interesting if they are turned over early and Kerry hit them hard. Does Derry then go into their shell and think, oh, dude, that doesn't work? Because that'll be interesting. Now, the only thing is, if Derry got a good start and maybe up the field first couple of attacks, David Clifford, Sean O'Shea don't track back, and Derry maybe find themselves 2 points in the scoreboard, then Kerry have a question. But I listened to Jack O'Connor made an interview today, and it says it doesn't matter how this. really just shows me the difference in Kerry this last couple of years. It doesn't matter how we win the game. It's all about winning the game.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, Kerry for years, it was all we play the Kerry way, we do this.
Yeah.
And it just shows you the way the pressure now that's coming on the top teams. When he made that statement the day, I thought that just is, it doesn't matter how we play, how we win the game. Sunday's all about winning. We will be patient, and Kerry supporters need to be patient.
Yeah, Daniel, interesting views from Mark there. Obviously, Conor Glass, Daniel, one of the standout things for me in the Cork game was his positional ability and his positional sense, particularly in his defensive role. I've never seen anyone actually in Ireland, perform the role as efficiently as he does. And I know from speaking to Marty Clark about it, he was sort of saying that from his AFL days, there's an awful emphasis on AFL players to be in the right position in anticipation for the ball to break down. And Glass seems to have that sort of real knack of doing that. Obviously, his role, Daniel, is going to be huge this weekend. And obviously the matchups of Chrissy McCaig and Clifford is going to be huge. Like, what are you expecting from this contest? Like, from a Derry perspective, do you think they've got a big chance?
It's interesting about even just talking about Glass, and you're always that kind of role, you're always expecting the worst, so you're always thinking negatively almost, but he is particularly good at it. It's an interesting one. Like I was looking at a stat. I think you might follow him on Twitter, Stephen O'Mara. He was talking about Derry's phases to scores per attack, and I think they're scoring about 6.8 points per 10 phases of attack, and playing against structured defense a lot of the time. So, like, as we've kind of alluded to already, Derry are more than happy to be methodical, and they're really, really good at it. Mark made the point, and I think this is the key thing. Like, is will Kerry cheat the numbers? Will they cheat the numbers? And the first couple of attacks could be massive. Like, I mean, you know yourself, Stephen, when you're talking about laying down barriers at the start of a game, if you have two teams who are going to set up kind of mirroring each other, the first play is critical. So if you're the team keeping the ball and you're the team being patient, and you can break down the blanket, you can go and get your score, that's a massive marker to lay down for what pattern the game is going to follow. Whereas if you're the defensive team, you turn over that first play, you get down and get a score in transition, that sets a doubt in the mind straight away. Like, if you remember any time we played Laois, I won't bring you back to 2018, where two teams are mirroring each other. Every time they always got to start on us, and that used to be a massive psychological thing for us, and I think there's going to be something going on here at the weekend, and it'll just be really interesting, because I think if David Clifford has a weakness, when Kerry are in a kick-out press, he has a tendency to, and fair enough, you're just scoring 1-8 or whatever he does in most games, he has a tendency, his defensive work on kick-out presses wouldn't be amazing, and there's probably lads like calling me a gobshite listening to this, because they're saying, well, sir, why would you need to when you're that good? But it's always an out. And I think if Clifford's back on his 45, he's just, his inclination wouldn't be for defensive work. And if you get a matchup with him, with a McCluskey or a Doherty or some of these speedsters, that could be that overlap that could really cause Kerry some problems. But I'm slow to write Kerry off after the last day, because I think I got all 3 out of 4 predictions wrong. But I think this will be a little bit tighter than the Monaghan Dublin game, but I still think Kerry probably did enough in that quarter-final to show that there is a little bit of steel about them at the moment. Complacency would be the only thing. Like, as we talked about before, Kerry and Tyrone have this thing going on, and that was a massive.
That's what I was going to say to you, Daniel. Do you not think there was a wee bit of Tyrone-itis in their performance, in that there was a bit of venom in their performance, wasn't there? Against Tyrone,
Yeah, and I think so, and that's something that kind of only comes out against Tyrone sometimes. Like, it'll be very hard for Kerry not to be looking at Derry as lesser. Like, that's going to be very hard for them, because it's not a traditional matchup for them. So it'll just be interesting to see the way it all pans out. Like, again, it's not going to be pretty, I'd say. Like, you look at the Cork game the last day with Cork and Derry. I mean, Derry were never going to lose it. Like, it was almost the second Cork got a sniff of a goal or got the goal itself, Derry just went down the field and said, oh, it's time to put on a little bit of a squeeze here, went and got their own score. So look, I think Derry are very much so, we're playing in second gear for that Cork game, and that could be a critical thing. Kerry had the elation of a massive performance, a real dogged performance, whereas Derry came in and basically underperformed and still won handy enough. So it's a fascinating game, as Marcus talked about. Like, and I know Ciara Meany came out and talked about the Croke Park kind of issue a little bit. It still is relevant. It really is relevant when you're attacking with that with such numbers, and most of the time through the hands. that does take its toll on you. Like, whereas Kerry do have that kick pass option, it's innate in them to get the head up first. That's just what the way they play. But it's going to be a fascinating matchup. I wouldn't expect a high scoring free for all, but it'll be very, very tactical, I'd say.
Yeah, Donny, it's Derry's first really significant championship, test since the Galway game last year at the same stage where they capitulated in the second half. It's going to take a mammoth performance from them to beat Kerry.
Derry's undefeated in this championship this year.
Yeah.
Kerry have been defeated once again, Mayo. Now, it's the one thing, Derry. Look, Derry are probably this is not a jape at them, but they're probably the most process-driven team in Ireland. Where
absolutely.
They stick to the process. They'll try and break. Now, the big thing, if you're sitting here analysing, you're going, like, is Derry going to bring a real challenge to Kerry, or it's that thing we talked about? If things go against them in the first 5 or 6 minutes, I've no doubt. Daniel mentioned the thing there about David Clifford in the 45. I don't think Kerry will take David Clifford anywhere near their own 45.
Tony, would you not be worried though? Just if you look back, right? Would you not just have a small bit of concern that the 3 big games that played Galway, obviously the 2 big games that played Galway last year in the semi-final, Derry this year in Division 2 final, and now obviously this Sunday, they need to sort of really to put themselves up there as All Ireland contenders. They have to get over the line, like, against a big.
Yes, they have to. But and look, to be fair, make no mistake, people talk about Tyrone. Look, Derry's a far better team than Tyrone. One guarantee: Derry will test Kerry far more this Sunday than Tyrone tested. And these people forget, like,
I agree with you.
Derry are Ulster champions 2 years in a row, and that's
correct.
They've went through the whole Division 2. All right, Dublin beat them in the final. I think they played 20 odd games, only lost 1 game, and that does. And look, they've recovered. Now, obviously, the Rory Gallagher thing's a big miss for them still. If Rory was along the line, it would give them even more chance. It's just, look, there's part of me thinks it's tactically, I can't wait. This is the one game I can't wait to see. I'm actually going to on Sunday. I can't wait just to see what Kerry do when Derry have the ball.
It's intriguing. It's going to be intriguing. It's definitely going to be intriguing.
See, but look, Derry, it's not just, this is a massive test for Derry. Make sure their minors won a minor in Ireland on Sunday. The county is buzzing. They're under 20s, and to be fair, look, they're football mad at the minute. Under 20s are beating an Ulster final. Their under 20s their minors won that Ireland on Sunday. Their seniors in that Ireland semi-final. I was up there last night in Slotney, and the whole place is just red and white. It's just football mad at the minute. But this is Derry beat Cork last week, and I know I was talking to a few of the Slotney boys, and actually told me they were disgusted. They sat in the change room after, disgusted with the way they played.
That's interesting. Yeah, so it's the standards I have.
That's going to be a big issue. But look, it's just, I go back to that thing, the Kerry movement. I look at Kerry Ford. There's one player we never mentioned for Kerry, and anytime I've watched Kerry, Doran Monaghan is a serious operator for Kerry. The work, now he doesn't he might get the scores, but the work he does, he frees Tagnoli up, he'll go up the field, he'll do screens for Clifford. It's just what Derry do. But the thing is, I can't wait to see Derry look after the ball. Yes, it's what Derry do. It's what Kerry do if Derry can score the first couple of points. It's what Kerry do. It's then what, if flip side, it's maybe if Derry get the ball away a couple of times and are hit hard, it's what they do next. Because we haven't actually seen Derry in that, we'll say that word uncomfortable. I haven't really seen Derry, even in the Ulster final against Armagh, even though Armagh went to him, Derry were able to regular set. I haven't really seen Derry really uncomfortable in the Galway game last year. And it's just, have they learned enough to see, can they get, and you said, look, it's Kerry, but they need to get over. They got to semi-final last year. Make sure Derry probably, they need to get to final. They got to semi-final last year, but I just can't see it. But I think it'll be a lot tighter than what people think it is. But it's just fascinating to see what Derry do with Kerry and vice versa, just tactically.
Daniel, call it there.
Yeah, I'd say Kerry, and ultimately it'll probably come down to that bit of firepower. And I think just the range of scores, like Clifford was kept quiet the last day, but still, Dermot O'Connor, Sean O'Shea, Moyne, as we mentioned, Spillane with a couple of points, they just chip in. So I think it'll be tight. I'd say Kerry by 3 or 4.
Tony, I agree with you. I think it's going to be fascinating tactically. What's your call on it then?
Kerry by 3. It's in around 3 or 4 too. But it's just, if Derry can bring that must be Derry's thing. Can Derry bring the game to the wire? If Derry can bring the game to the last 10 minutes, then you're going to get serious questions of, Kerry, but look, it's at the minute it's probably Kerry by 3 or 4.
Good man.
Mark, are you in the box Sunday? Are you?
No, I'm not in the box.
Ah.
I haven't got offered that box since the Dublin third game. It never happened.
Stevie Ransom out there to give it to you.
Stevie seemed to be in a brave bit.
No. Hey, listen, the less said, not the better. Hey, man, listen, great to have you back on again. And look, we'll hopefully catch up the week of the final, for the last show of the county season. But look, thanks very much again, Mark. Thanks very much, Daniel, and we'll chat to you soon. Thank you, lads.
No
Cheers,
problem.
boys.